Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. We are from Group 1 JAC 220X6, and as for today, we will talk about the current issues in whistleblowing. Before that, I will introduce our group members. First, our group members consist of 4 members, which is Nur Ain Syafiqah binti Sulaiman, Nur Adriana binti Nordin, and our group leaders Nur Najwa Awatif binti Yusri, and lastly Sarah Najiha binti Ejalil, which is me. Okay, next is the introduction for whistleblower itself. What is whistleblower? The Whistleblower Protection Act 2010 of Malaysia has defined a whistleblower as any person who makes a disclosure of improper conduct to an enforcement agency. It further defines improper conduct as any conduct which constitute a disciplinary of criminal offence. Okay, whistleblower also can be defined as a person who could be an employee of a company or a government agency disclosing information to the public or some higher authority about any wrongdoing, which could be in the form of fraud and corruption. A whistleblower is a person who comes forward and share his or her knowledge on any wrongdoing which he or she thinks is happening in the whole organization or in a specific department. A whistleblower could be an employee, contractor, or a supplier who become aware of any illegal activities. Okay, in Malaysia, the Whistleblower Protection Act 2010 was enforced on 15 December 2010. The act is to be aimed to provide protection to whistleblowers who disclose information of serious misconduct in the public or private sector to the relevant enforcement agencies.
Now, I will explain on two types of whistleblower. So the first one is internal whistleblowing. So what is internal whistleblowing? It is the process of reporting of suspected improper conduct or wrongdoings within an organization. It is usually for the employees. So the employee may report if there is any suspected improper conduct or wrongdoings by the colleagues to the manager or CEO, or they may follow the whistleblowing process that have been set up by the company. And the second one is external whistleblowing. So external whistleblowing is a process of reporting the wrongdoings or misconduct in the company to organization outside of the company. For example, like authorities, regulators, or government agency outside the company. So, for example, the employee may report to the regulators or government agency regarding the misconduct in the company. So it will cause to the public exposure, which is the information of the company will be exposed, and there is external inquiries and to protect the company. So there will be some setback from the external whistleblowing. Now I will explain the Whistleblowing Protection Act. So this act came into force in Malaysia on 15 December 2010. So what's the purpose of this act? So there are two purposes for Whistleblowing Protection Act, which is to enable reporting mechanisms for whistleblowing, and then to protect any harmful or dangerous action made against whistleblowers. So in the act, there is section 3 part 2 of the act. It is focused on to receive disclosure of the improper conduct, to enforce the whistleblower protection, to deal with the disclosure of improper conduct, and to implement the provisions of the act. And then there is section 7 or part 3 of the act, which is focused on the protection of confidential information, which is they will protect the information of the whistleblower and the person that the whistleblower reported to. And then there is immunity from civil and criminal actions, and then protection against detrimental actions. Now I will explain our code of conduct. Code of conduct is defined as a set of principles and rules to control behavior of employees in an organizations. And then what is the role of an internal auditor to ensure proper conduct in an organization? So there are two roles, which is the first one is to assess the effectiveness of the code to lessen the risk of improper conduct. Second one is to evaluate the design, implementation, and effectiveness of the activities, program, and ethics-related objectives in an organization. And the last part in code of conduct is what should be included in code of conduct and whistleblower policy. So first one is introduction of the policy, addressing issues in the code, reporting the violations, appointment of a compliance officer, acting in good faith, confidentiality of report, and protection afforded to the whistleblower.
My name is Nur Adriana Bidodin, and I'm going to present the issue on whistleblowers' role in mitigating fraud on Malaysian higher education institutions. Okay, fraud may not only can occur on organizations in companies, but also can happen in higher education institutions. Here we need to analyze the significance of whistleblowers as the investigator's major source of information when investigating into fraud cases involving institutions. So, they are potentially fraudulent incidents that can occur in the context of Malaysia higher education sector. As we know, whistleblower is somebody who reports any fraudulent activity, whether they can be employee, contractor, or supplier. Okay, fraudulent activities including asset misappropriation, financial statement fraud, and also corruption. For whistleblowing in higher education institutions in Malaysia, Malaysian people are still not aware on important to whistle the blow regarding any fraud that happened on workplace. This is because they don't want to be called as betraying their own colleague, or the fraud that being committed is too familiar in the environment, so it will create a disinterest in reporting any wrongdoing. The longer period they are working with their colleague, it will create a bond of friendship and will reduce the probability to report their own colleague fraud. Okay, this is so dangerous because higher education institutions are receiving grants and funding from government. Government are providing 90% fund to institution and 10% are from student fees. So university can be one of the institutions that may be involved in financial scandal. This is due to the lack of internal control. There is no segregation of duties and independent oversight committee to detect any fraud that may occur. Besides that, there is a budget cut. The budget cut may not be good for the university ability to sustain their financial ability. This is because they need to keep up with the most recent development in education to improve the teaching and learning environment. So for employee perception towards whistleblowing, employees' perception and understanding towards ethical policy implemented in the organization is important to determine the ethical behavior and individual. So employees' moral judgment will improve if they sense a positive ethical environment. Positive whistleblowing practice will result from a positive ethical environment. Okay, if they have a positive whistleblowing, so they will stop labeling whistleblowers as nosy complainant. So they will transform into workers who believe they have sense and illegal behavior and want to put an end to it. Okay, the last one, case in Malaysia. The MDS Deputy Director first individual charged and released under Whistleblower Protection Act. This started when Mr. Wafi Abdul Aziz accused of making his employer to be fired when the employee informed the MSCC for his wrongdoing. This is because Dr. Abdul Rahman Muhammad Sharif, the chairman of Education Malaysia Global Studies, was persuaded to sign a document terminating the employee's employment in exchange for the employer billing him improper behavior to the Ethical Commission. But at the end, Mr. Wafi was granted release by Judge Suzana Hussain without the need for hearing after it was determined that the prosecution had failed to make a solid case against him. Okay, even though this case focusing on Mr. Wafi, but the main point is the employee that being fired due to his report to MSCC regarding wrongdoing of former Deputy Director Mr. Wafi Abdul Aziz.
My name is Nur Aizalita and I will continue presenting on the factors that affect the internal auditors, internal whistleblowing attention in Malaysia. Based on the previous research, these are the factors that may influence the whistleblower intention. The factor includes the organizational, individual, situational, and demographic factor. My focus in this presentation is on the factor that strongly affect the internal auditor internal whistleblowing intention, including principal climate, relativism judgment, And the last one is seriousness of wrongdoing. The first significant factor is the principal climate. It is based on the belief that there are universals of right and wrong, and ethical decisions are based on different applications and interpretations of rules, law, and standards. According to Cullen, when organizations develop a principal climate, processes are more likely to conduct in accordance with internalized rational standards and principles. The study hypothesis was that in an organization with an ethical climate characterized by the principles, internal auditors are more likely to whistleblower, and this hypothesis was approved. This factor is considered to be significant in predicting internal auditor internal whistleblower intentions, since these internal auditors in Malaysia have principal environment as rule-abiding organizational members. They must conduct their audit auditively in accordance with the IIA Professional Practice Framework. The second significant factor is the judgment of relativism. Relativism is described as the perspective of what is right and wrong based on the standard or criteria established in the social or cultural culture system as opposed to individual consideration. According to Cattell, the core relativism is that cultural values are vital in establishing individual ethical beliefs. The study hypothesis proposed that the greater relativism dimensions in ethical judgment, the more likely it is that an internal auditor may whistleblow, and this hypothesis was approved. Based on the interpretations given by the Reidenbach and Robin, relativism judgment is governed by social or cultural systems rather than individual perception. This is consistent with the internal auditing position, which are primarily based on the criteria established by internal auditor organizations and professional associations. The last significant factor is the seriousness of the wrongdoing. Numerous studies have revealed that the more serious the issue, the more likely the whistleblower behavior. In more serious circumstances, the tendency to whistleblower is stronger. As a result, the study proposed the hypothesis that the more serious the wrongdoing, the more likely internal auditor are to blow the whistle. According to the finding of the study, internal auditors who perceive wrongdoing to be more serious were more likely to report this behavior than internal auditors who perceive wrongdoing to be less serious. This implies that when determining whether or not to whistleblower, Malaysian internal auditor will consider how the misconduct will affect the organization and its stakeholders. Okay, now I will proceed with the whistleblowing program in Malaysia as the current issue. As we all know, whistleblowing is one of the most effective methods of detecting and preventing corruption and other forms of misconduct. Despite the existence of the whistleblower protection law, most whistleblowers are not protected and are attacked and arrested, particularly in Malaysia when the cases are involved persons in high positions. This is because due to the lack of public awareness of whistleblowing. As a result to lack of awareness, World Whistleblower Day is celebrated on 23rd June every year to praise the brave individuals who come forward to disclose wrongdoing and to share some of the ways to help them in achieving the justice. Furthermore, in response to the Malaysian government announcement of modifications to the Whistleblower Protection Act 2010 in November 2021, anti-corruption groups have argued that key components in Malaysia legislation must be promptly updated to provide better protection for the whistleblower. Additionally, as another continues to raise awareness of the whistleblowing, several Malaysian firms run whistleblowing programs to give a mechanism for employees to expose any wrongdoing activity. For instance, OCBC Bank conducts the OCBC Bank Whistleblowing Program, which aims to create an atmosphere that is honest, ethical and fair for its customers, employees and shareholders. Their policy provides a pathway for all OCBC users to report any inappropriate activity by OCBC employees in accordance with the process outlined in this program, as well as assurance that any information submitted by the whistleblower will be treated in strict confidence without risk of reprisal against the whistleblower. A part of OCBC, Malaysian Airport Holding Berhad also conduct its own whistleblowing program. MHB expect that staff and others that deal with who are genuinely concerned about all aspects of MHB operation are to come forward and voice those concerns. MHB has in place a whistleblowing policy to guide the company in dealing with the disclosure of wrongdoing covered by the policy. In a nutshell, whistleblower protection is essential for protecting the public interest and promote a culture of public accountability and integrity. As a result, whistleblower awareness must continue to be spread as Malaysians are still unaware of this issue. The government and business sector should work together to raise knowledge about the whistleblowing program and highlight the value of whistleblowing as well as to safeguard the whistleblower.
In a nutshell, whistleblowing has influenced many changes within the business and industry practices. whistleblowing has many negative effects on a business, including loss of credibility, a decline in customer which result in a decline financially for the business. Okay, all in all, whistleblowing policy is a must in all organizations, whether big or small, to prevent misconduct and uphold the interests of all the stakeholders, whether internal or external. So, it needs to maintain anonymity to encourage the whistleblower to act when they see wrongdoing. However, in practically, whistleblowing is not free from danger, as the whistleblower may face challenges such as being laid off or not getting a new job or even threats to their life. Therefore, the proper implementation of the policy is highly important. Okay, that's all from us. Thank you.
I know gold is not enough. She's a